She was just a homeless girl, mocked for her tattered shoes by a clique of cruel teens, their laughter echoing through the gritty streets of Skid Row. But when Lila opened her mouth to sing, her voice are haunting, soul-shattering for revealed, a secret past that turned the tables on her bullies and set the world on fire. From the ashes of a forgotten life, Liliana Voss, daughter of a music legend, rose to reclaim her destiny, exposing the fragility of privilege and the power of resilience in a story that will leave you speechless. Don't miss this epic journey of triumph. Subscribe now to catch every chapter of Lila's rise and never miss a story that hits like a melody you can't forget. Hey viewers, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. In the sprawling, sun-bleached chaos of Los Angeles, where the glittering allure of Hollywood Boulevard stood in stark contrast to the gritty despair of Skid Row, a 16-year-old girl named Lila shuffled along the cracked, litter-strewn sidewalks, her tattered sneakers barely clinging to her feet, the soles flapping like wounded wings with every weary step, exposing her calloused toes to the jagged, sun-heated pavement. Her hair, once a cascade of chestnut curls that shimmered under the chandeliers of a life long gone, was now a matted tangle, tied back with a frayed piece of string she'd scavenged from a discarded grocery bag. And her emerald green eyes, sharp and soulful, held a depth that spoke of unspoken pain and unyielding resilience. Though no one in the bustling city ever paused long enough to notice, to the world, Lila was a ghost among the forgotten, shadow blending into the endless maze of tents, cardboard shelters, and desperate faces that defined Skid Row's unforgiving streets. Her existence marked only by the cruel, mocking laughter of a group of teenagers who called themselves the Elite Crew, a clique of privileged high schoolers from the manicured hills of Brentwood, their designer clothes, gleaming AirPods, and polished smirks, a jarring contrast to the despair that surrounded them. Led by Ethan Caldwell, a 17-year-old with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, a wardrobe curated from Rodeo Drive, and a sneer that could silence a room. The Elite Crew made it their daily ritual to torment Lila whenever she passed there. Favorite hangout spot at the corner of 5th and San Pedro, grimy intersection where they lounged against the hoods of sleek BMWs and Teslas, sipping overpriced iced lattes from artisanal coffee shops and filming their antics for social media. Clout, their Instagram and TikTok feeds a curated showcase of their wealth and cruelty. On one blistering afternoon in late summer, as Lila trudged past, her head bowed to avoid their gaze. Clutching a worn canvas bag that held her entire world a half-eaten apple wrapped in a napkin, a dog-eared journal filled with scribbled lyrics, and fragmented poetry in a single, creased photograph of a woman with her same green eyes, her only tethered to a past she could barely reconcile with her present, Ethan pointed at her sneakers. The canvas splitting at the seams, the laces reduced to frayed threads, the soles so worn they offered no protection from the burning asphalt. "Yo, Cinderella, where's your glass slipper?" he jeered, his voice dripping with disdain, his words slicing through the humid air like a blade. "Those kicks belong in a landfill with the rest of you." His friends erupted into a chorus of laughter that echoed off the graffiti-stained walls of abandoned storefronts. Chloe, a platinum blonde with a cruel giggle and a penchant for posting makeup tutorials that racked up thousands of likes. Marcus, a wannabe influencer with a permanent smirk and a TikTok following, obsessed with his prank videos. Jade, whose designer sunglasses hid eyes that gleamed with malice, her socialite mother's connections ensuring her every whim was met. And Tyler, the quiet one, whose loyalty to Ethan stemmed from a desperate need to belong, his laughter more forced than the others, but no less cutting. They raised their phones, filming Lila's humiliation, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of taunts. "Look at her, scavenging like a rat. Bet she smells worse than those shoes." Oblivious to the storm they were about to unleash, unaware that their mockery was the spark that would ignite a chain of events, destined to unravel their carefully curated lives. Lila's cheeks burned, not with shame, but with a quiet, smoldering resolve, a flicker of something fierce buried deep within her. A secret she'd guarded through years of hardship, one that would soon turn the tables on her tormentors and rewrite her story in ways they could never imagine. Lila wasn't always this shadow of a girl scraping by on the fringes of society. 3 years ago, she had been Liliana Voss, the only daughter of Cassandra Voss, a music producer whose name was etched in gold on Grammy Awards. Her Hollywood Hills mansion, a glittering palace where A-list celebrity singers, actors, rappers danced, under crystal chandeliers at exclusive galas, their laughter mingling with the clink of champagne glasses. Lila's childhood was a world of privilege, a fairy tale of sorts, though not without its shadows. Her mother Cassandra was a force of nature, a woman whose genius in the studio crafted chart-topping albums for global superstars. Her ear for melody unmatched, her drive relentless. Lila grew up in the glow of that brilliance, her days filled with private tutors who taught her literature and calculus in a sunlit study. Custom guitars lined up in her bedroom like treasures, and summers spent in Paris or New York where she trailed her mother through recording studios and fashion shows, absorbing the rhythm of a life steeped in music and power. Cassandra had seen Lila as her legacy, her minimi, teaching her to play the piano at 5, to sing harmonies at 7, to write lyrics by 10. Her voice a natural gift that Cassandra nurtured with a mix of pride and exacting standards. "You're going to be bigger than me one day, Lily," she'd say, her green eyes mirroring Lila's, her smile warm but tinged with the weight of expectation. But beneath the glamour, there were cracks. Cassandra's perfectionism, her late-night work binges, her increasing reliance on prescription pills to keep up with the demands of an industry that worshipped youth and churned through talent like disposable goods. Lila, only 13, didn't see the warning signs. Didn't understand why her mother's laughter grew rarer, her temper sharper, her hands trembling as she poured another glass of wine or popped another pill. It wasn't until one rainy night, in February, when Lila found Cassandra unresponsive on the marble floor of their home, a bottle of pills spilled beside her, that the fairy tale ended. The paramedics arrived too late, their efforts futile, and the headlines screamed tragedy music. Mogul Cassandra Voss, dead at 38, overdose suspected. While Lila's world shattered into fragments, no one bothered to piece together. Her father, a session musician who'd left when Lila was a toddler, was a ghost in her life, unreachable and uninterested. With no close relatives willing to take her in, Cassandra's estate became a battleground for greedy executives, distant cousins and lawyers who saw dollar signs in the millions tied up in royalties, properties, and unreleased tracks. The legal wars dragged on, leaving Lila with nothing but a small trust fund locked away until she turned 18, inaccessible. While she was shunted into the foster system, a cold, impersonal machine that chewed up her hopes and spit out despair. The foster system was a blur of instability. 6 homes in 2 years, each worse than the last. The first was a cramped apartment in Van Nuys, where the foster mother chain-smoked and ignored Lila, her focus on the monthly stipend rather than the children in her care. The second was a house in Inglewood, where the foster father's temper erupted in bruises Lila hid under long sleeves. The third was better, briefly an older couple who tried to be kind but were too frail to manage. Lila's quiet rebellion, her refusal to trust after so much betrayal. By the 5th home, she'd learned to keep her head down, to hide her mother's photograph in her journal, the only pieces of her past she could protect. But the 6th home broke her. A foster father whose hands wandered too far, his leering smiles a threat Lila couldn't ignore. At 15, she ran, slipping out in the dead of night with her canvas bag. Choosing the uncertainty of the streets over the certainty of harm, Skid Row became her refuge, not because it was safe, but because it was anonymous. A place where no one asked questions, where she could disappear into the crowd of the forgotten. She learned to survive, scavenging for food in dumpsters behind fast food joints, sleeping in alleys or under tarps, moving constantly to avoid trouble. Her voice became her lifeline, her only rebellion against the world that had discarded her. In the dead of night, in abandoned lots, or beneath the hum of freeway overpasses, she sang, her melodies a haunting blend of soul and sorrow, her mother's songs mixed with her own, lyrics born from the pain of loss and the grit of survival. No one heard her, not the addicts nodding off nearby. not the street vendors packing up their carts, not the cops who shooed her away from doorways. But singing kept her sane, kept her connected to the girl she used to be, the girl who'd once believed in dreams. Back on 5th and San Pedro, the elite crew's taunts had become a daily gauntlet, their laughter a ritual that followed Leela like a shadow. She'd learned to tune them out, to keep her eyes on the ground, to move quickly past their corner. But on that fateful afternoon, Ethan's voice cut deeper than usual, his dare laced with a challenge she couldn't ignore. "Sing us a song." "Rags," he mocked, his phone already recording, his friend's laughter a cruel soundtrack. "Bet you sound like a dying cat." Chloe chimed in, flipping her hair, her phone angled for the perfect shot. Marcus snickered, already typing a caption for the video while Jade adjusted her sunglasses, her lips curling in disdain. Tyler, quieter, shifted uncomfortably, but didn't intervene.
Out.
His loyalty to Ethan outweighing any flicker of conscience. Leela's heart pounded, her hands tightening around her bag. But something inside her snapped not with rage, but with a clarity that had been dormant too long, a refusal to be invisible any longer. She stopped walking, straightened her spine, and turned to face them, her green eyes locking onto Ethan's with an intensity that made his smirk falter for a fraction of a second. Without a word, she opened her mouth and sang, her voice rising like a phoenix from ashes, a soulful ballad her mother had written years ago, a song called Broken Wings that Cassandra had composed after her own mother's death. Its lyrics a raw lament for love, lost and strength reclaimed. The notes poured from Lila's throat, pure and powerful, each one carrying the weight of her pain, her loss, her resilience. The sound so haunting it seemed to silence the city itself, the honks of cars, the chatter of passers-by, the hum of distant traffic fading as strangers stopped in their tracks, drawn to the sound like moths to a flame. A street vendor paused mid-sale, his customer turning to listen. A group of tourists, their cameras trained on the skyline, lowered them to stare. Even the homeless men and women nearby, hardened by years on the streets, looked up their eyes, softening as Leela's voice wove through the air, a melody that spoke of sorrow but also of hope, of breaking and rebuilding, of surviving against all odds. Ethan's phone trembled in his hand, his smirk gone, replaced by a flicker of unease as he realized the video was capturing something far bigger than his intended humiliation. Chloe's giggle died in her throat. Marcus's fingers froze on. His screen, Jade's sunglasses slipped down her nose, and Tyler's eyes widened, his usual silence now one of awe. The video, meant to mock, instead captured a moment of raw, undeniable talent. Leela's voice a force that transcended the grime of Skid Row, her green eyes blazing with a story no one had bothered to hear until now. The clip spread like wildfire. Uploaded to Ethan's TikTok with the caption, "Homeless Cinderella needs a fairy godmother." But it wasn't his words that drove its virality, was Leela. Within hours, the video racked up thousands of views, then millions, as people across the globe shared it, mesmerized by the voice, the girl, the mystery. Hashtags like #SkidRowSiren, #HomelessAngel, and #BrokenWings flooded social media, comments pouring in. Who is she? Why is she on the streets? This voice is unreal. Each share amplifying Lila's story, each view a crack in the wall of her invisibility. By nightfall, the video reached Marcus Tate, a music producer in his late 30s. A man who'd once been Cassandra Voss's protege, rising star in her studio who'd learned the art of sound from her meticulous hands. Marcus was in his West Hollywood loft, scrolling through his phone, when the video stopped him cold. He recognized the song immediately, Broken Wings, a track he'd helped Cassandra polish late one night, while her laughter echoing in the studio as they debated chord progressions. But it was Leela's face that hit him hardest, those emerald eyes, the spitting image of Cassandra's, face he hadn't seen since she was a child. Trailing her mother through recording sessions, her tiny hands banging on the piano, Marcus's heart sank as he realized who she was, Liliana Voss. The daughter Cassandra had adored, the girl he'd lost track of after the funeral, when the estate battles and his own rising career had pulled him away. Guilt washed over him, a tide of regret for not checking on her, for assuming the system would care for her, for failing the woman who'd given him his start. He watched the video again, noting the location tags, the corner of 5th and San Pedro, and made a decision. He grabbed his keys, drove to Skid Row, and spent hours navigating the maze of tents and cardboard shelters, asking wary strangers if they'd seen the girl from the video, showing them the clip on his phone. Most shook their heads, suspicious of his intentions, but one older woman, her face weathered but kind, pointed him toward a narrow alley where Lila often slept. Hidden beneath a tarp behind a pile of discarded crates, he found her there, curled up on a piece of cardboard, her canvas bag clutched to her chest, her journal open to a page of lyrics scrawled in smudged pencil. The words raw and aching, I sing to the stars, but they don't sing back. Liliana, Marcus said softly, his voice breaking the silence of the alley. Lila's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear, her body tensing as if ready to run. But then she saw his face, the familiar slope of his shoulders, the man who'd once sat at her mother's piano, teaching her how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star when she was 6, his laughter warm as he corrected her tiny fingers. Recognition flickered then. Trust, fragile, but real. Marcus, she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. He nodded, kneeling beside her, his eyes glistening. I'm so sorry, Lily. I should have found you sooner. He didn't push, didn't overwhelm her, just offered his hand, and after a long moment, she took it, letting him lead her to his car, her steps hesitant but steady, her bag slung over her shoulder. He brought her to his studio, a sleek sanctuary in West Hollywood lined with platinum records and state-of-the-art equipment, a world that felt both foreign and familiar to Lila, a reminder of her mother's life. Over cups of coffee and takeout, pizza, she poured out her story, the foster homes, the streets, the nights she'd sung to keep herself whole. Marcus listened, his guilt deepening with every word, but so did his resolve. He handed her a guitar, the same brand her mother had, loved and asked her to sing again, not for a video, not for the world, but for herself. Lila hesitated, then picked up the instrument, her fingers trembling as they found the chords, her voice filling the studio with a new song. One she'd written in her journal, a raw, gritty anthem about survival, loss, and reclaiming her voice. Marcus recorded it, not for profit, but for proof. A demo that blended Cassandra's soulful influence with Lila's own edge. A sound that was both timeless and modern, like Amy Winehouse meeting Billie Eilish in a Skid Row alley. Marcus leaked the demo to a radio station, a contact he'd made years ago, and by morning, Lila's voice was everywhere. The song alley hymns climbing charts, its raw honesty resonating with listeners who'd never set foot on Skid Row, but felt her pain in their bones. The internet exploded with her story, journalists digging into her past, uncovering her connection to Cassandra Voss, their exposes shaming the executives and cousins who'd left her to the streets, their names dragged through headlines as the public rallied behind the girl they now called the Skid Row Siren. Her trust fund, long tied up in legal battles, was finally released. A court ruling in her favor after the public outcry, giving her the means to rebuild, but it was her music that became her true salvation, each song a piece of her soul, each performance a step toward healing. The elite crew, meanwhile, faced a brutal reckoning. Ethan's video, meant to humiliate, backfired spectacularly, the internet turning on them with a vengeance. Their faces, once symbols of untouchable privilege, were plastered across posts, calling out their cruelty, their parents' wealth no shield against the public's wrath. Ethan's father, a real estate mogul, was exposed for shady deals involving foreclosed properties, his reputation crumbling under scrutiny. Chloe's shoplifting scandal from a high-end boutique resurfaced, her influencer status tanking as brands dropped her. Marcus's rap career, a flop he'd buried, was mocked relentlessly, his follower count plummeting. 8. Rumored affair with a teacher sparked an investigation, her family's socialite status tarnished. Tyler, the quiet one, broke ranks, posting a public apology that only fueled the fire, his betrayal of Ethan earning him no forgiveness from either side. Ethan deleted his accounts, his bravado reduced to silence, but the damage was done. Their clique dismantled, their lives a cautionary tale of privilege unchecked. Lila, though, didn't revel in their downfall. She was too busy rebuilding, moving into a modest apartment in Echo Park, refusing the extravagance of her mother's world. Her journal always closed, now filled with new songs born from both pain and hope. She performed at small venues, then larger ones. Her concerts raising millions for homeless shelters, her voice a beacon for the voiceless. At 18, she stood on a Grammy stage, her sneakers replaced but her heart still tied to Skid Row. Her acceptance speech, a call to action. Look around, you see the people no one else does. They have stories too. She thanked Marcus, her mother, and in a moment that stunned the audience, not for their cruelty, but for pushing her to sing that day, to reclaim her story and turn the tables on a world that had tried to erase her. As the crowd roared, she smiled, knowing her mother was watching, her secret past, no longer a burden, but a fire that had lit her way. Her music a testament to the power of resilience, a melody that would echo long after the lights dimmed. Viewers, I'd love to know where are you watching this story from. Drop a comment with your city or country.